Hey guys, BigBurb here. So today we're doing another scripted video. Yay. These are a pain to edit, but I'll get used to them eventually. I've been having fun doing them regardless. And besides, today we've got an important topic. The last two have just been cube defense, but now it's actually something more worth a scripted video. Anyways, I've been wanting to make this for a while now. If you saw my somewhat recent TDX video on expert mode, you can very clearly tell that I don't like the game very much. The comments definitely know. Was the tiredness partially because school? Yeah. Partially because I was kind of getting forced to play a game I didn't want to play? Yeah. Then again, that does kind of tie into not liking TDX. But regardless, I do not like TDX that much. Now, before everyone runs over to the comments and starts typing their hate and starts trying to tear down all my arguments before I even make them, just know, if you're gonna comment, watch through the video, because otherwise you're gonna miss points that I make. And also, please be civil. If you're not civil, I am not going to be civil either. So basically what this video is going to be is I'm going to be explaining why I don't like TDX's just general stuff by comparing it to other tower defense games. And I'll be going from specifically targeting arguments to, that I've seen to actual gameplay elements that I very much so disliked, and was noticeable to me that I disliked them from the beginning of me playing the game. First, let me talk about the few things that TDX does do right. The visuals on this game are pretty freaking good. Now, I know I said in my cube defense video about why I like that game, that visuals aren't something that I'm like, oh, this is the make or break. Like, visuals are just like a nice, and the visuals are nice here. Like, I'll admit, some of the maps are pretty stunning. Though despite the enemies, being, the bosses actually look pretty good. Most of them, I like the designs, especially with, I like the concept of, Exo Santo visiting parts of his body, like, revealing his endoskeleton as he lowers his HP, but, I mean, TDS just kind of did that, but better. Also, some of their towers are pretty fun. They are few and far between, but like especially artillery is very fun to use, I will say, as well. Patrol boat. You could say I'm being forced to say that, but you know, I do like the tower. I do think that's about it. And before we get to the actual point in the game, I will say one more thing about comments. Do not say that, oh, well, the game's in beta, things are bound to change. That's the point of this video. The point of this video is that I want them to change these things before they've been, like, basically established, and they don't want to change them because the player base has gotten used to them. So anyways, let's just get into it. The dialogue in TDX is something. I mean, it's basically on par, if not worse, than the Commander dialogue that's almost 4 years old at this point. It's just so bare bones. Like, the tips are okay. My, like, ideal tower defense game, dialogue's there to, you know, it has the jokes and humor to lighten the mood, as well it does its job of letting you know that things are coming, that like explaining enemy gimmicks, all that. But TDX, it's just so dry. Like, it's so hand-holdy at some points. Like, I can't even go like 2 seconds without being told I need to place Missile Trooper when I didn't even bring Missile Trooper. And that's, like, also a problem. They mention specific towers when it's very much a possibility that you didn't bring those towers. I mean, I remember when doing the Christmas event, it tells you to place Missile Trooper at some point. I don't remember exactly when. But, like, what if I just don't have Missile Trooper? Like, but here's where the other tower defense games come in. Tower Galactica's dialogue is the best I've seen in any tower defense game. It is so good because they have multiple characters. That's the formula. You want to have multiple characters, because then you can have personalities that bounce off of each other, just like Plavo and Yapetus. Now, you can even see in that the first world of Tower Galactica, and if you don't know what Tower Galactica is, it's campaign-based tower defense games, so there are multiple galaxies. I call them worlds because it's the typical use for games, but regardless, the first galaxy, where you just have Plavo, the dialogue's a bit bare bones. Yes, he does make some funny jokes now and then. The gag with the leets is okay. But then once you make it to the second galaxy, that's where the dialogue really ramps up. Okay, maybe I'm just biased because of Yapetus, but let's roll on. I mean, for a game that was discontinued over a year ago, and the dialogue's still holding up, it's pretty good. And yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of situations where you can see that Plavo and Yapetus definitely have some funny interactions. Something that comes to mind is in Paralia in particular. When the Makos show up, Plavo comments on them being fast, and then he says they're not even that fast or something like that. Plavo says, Yapetus, you're as slow as, I think it was like dry yeast or something. I don't remember exactly what the dialogue was. But then Yapetus says, shut your goofy mouth up. You know, it's there to lighten them. Like, that's like funny, it gives you a chuckle. While you have the kind of just sitting around, not doing much. Yes, in Tower Galactica also have the bullet heck elements, but we don't need to get into that. Pixel Gun Tower Defense also has some cool dialogue. Like, I've been replaying this game recently since it just got an update, and some of the dialogue is pretty funny. Now, they can't exactly have characters bounce off of each other, since the dialogue's based on what towers you brought. For the most part, at least. I've had some times where towers showed up that I didn't have. I don't actually have footage of that, but it's funny to see some of the characters' reactions, and they do have says that like fit their, like, because all the towers in that game are like video game stereotypes, so they have like personalities to fit their stereotypes. Like, for example, hacker has a lot of intel, or exploiter, sorry. He gives exact descriptions of the enemies, which, so like, for example, the undead enforcers, he says there will be a lot more coming later, and he tells you to get something reliable against them. So yeah, that's a pretty cool part of that game. So how should TDX fix their dialogue? Well, I suggest having multiple characters, as well, like in Tower Galactica, having them talk with the enemies. Like, sometimes in Tower Galactica, you'll have, for example, Captain show up and talk with him. I know they introduced that doctor character. Don't like her very much, but regardless, it would be nice to see like them have, if they have like a second team character, or maybe even the player character, have some dialogue. Make the advisor actually have some personality. That'd be nice. TDX's game modes are weird to talk about, to say the least. This will fall into our next category a little bit, but regardless, I want to talk on it. Easy mode in TDX is pretty okay. I mean, being able to beat it with a starter is a good thing. Aside from that, the games just feel boring. When I die, I don't feel like it's my fault, because how punishing the game is. You slip up a few times and you're stuck at the back of the map trying to fight for your life. In TDS, when I lose, usually it's because I got distracted, poorly planned, or something else. It definitely shows. Like, for example, they introduce enemies more slowly to let you know that, oh, this is definitely coming. You're gonna need to know about this. Except for hardcore, we don't talk about hardcore. Because, like, for example, even the hidden enemies, there is a very early skip well, it is the same time as the rest of the early game waves, but you have time to kill the enemies, and even then, a whole point is that those are, they have a certain immunity, so once you kill those, you still have your other defenses which are still able to deal with the stuff at the front. And like breakers, they don't just bum rush you with them immediately. Sure, the wave 16 and wave 32 are somewhat rough, but you're still able to deal with them before they send out the hordes of them. And also in cube defense, well, I especially never felt like it's my fault that I lost. Or sorry, I especially never feel like it's game's fault that I lost. There's always something that I could have done better. Even in Winter Trials Wave 6, because I actually did find a strat to make that RNG, well, not RNG, dependence. Now, I'm no expert in game design, so I don't know exactly why it works how it does, but it does, so I don't know, maybe just start taking notes from cube defense. I should do that on most of these regardless. Yes, the classic tower defense games issue, progression. TDX's progression is actually fine for early, but once you get past like around level 50, it slows to a halt. Being that you run out of most of the quests that aren't just passive, and the fact that you have all of the quests from the beginning kind of makes it redundant having the quests in the first place. It's funny because this is actually the opposite of cube defense. Cube defense's early progression is very poor, but once you get to level 15, it speeds up a lot due to you getting access to a lot of stuff, as well as the Trial of Zabuso game mode, which is definitely a good challenge. And then after that, you can keep going for a while. Like, I just now am starting to not really have that much to do in cube defense anymore after reaching level 90. Keep in mind, comparative to TDX, when I felt like I didn't have anything else to do, even though I did have some stuff I could do, but it's like, after like level 50, maybe like 55, somewhere around there, yeah, it's just been occasionally playing whenever my friends are. And Monolith Defense's progression is completely unmatched. It has the quests, which are just so well designed. The quests in Monolith Defense are very good because it gives you something to do aside from just playing the same thing over and over again. You actually have a reason to play different maps, you have a reason to go after the campaigns or raid mode or start playing a new game mode, because the quests, you get unlock new quests as your level progresses. So like, for example, there are quests that are locked behind certain levels like 10, 15, 20. And then also they're locked behind having completed the quest behind them. Just to show you how crazy the gains from the quests are, before the Gust Shop update, when they added all these quests, I was, like around level 100. Then after that, I gained a whole 50 levels somewhere around there, just in the span of like a week or so after the update. Which is pretty crazy considering how long I'd been playing beforehand. And also they have the repeatable quests for the to get certain towers that ascensions, which, I mean, those are more of passives, but you can grind them out. And you always have them there instead of having to use the Gust Shop for that, though the Gust Shop does help a lot. Tower Galactica's progressions can just be chalked up to how it's a campaign based, though I do think there is some merit to how it's built. It's a certain order that you can get the towers in, though you can always branch out. So if you do try to branch out and it doesn't work out for you, you know it's not the game's fault for having poor progression. Even though it was left half-baked. And aside from the Hoveneck, there isn't really that many difficulty spikes. It kind of eases you into the mechanics, which is nice. Oh boy, I'm probably gonna get hate for this one, but I gotta say, the music in TDX would have been okay if it wasn't game music, specifically tower defense game music. It doesn't increase in intensity. what I mean? Here, listen to Revive Plague Doctor's theme. Pretty good, right? Well, it doesn't really get more intense as it goes on. Listen here to a clip later in the song. In comparison to like TDX's Void Steps. The problem I'm having is you can't go from the quiet dead silence of just having gunshots and zombie death sounds to very intense music like you see in TDS, most of the recent themes. So basically not the ones that were over 3 years old or based on a song over 4 years old. Have slow progressions or have songs before them that build up to the theme. That's why I kind of like Predator's theme, because it's got a intro, like it doesn't just immediately jump into how intense it's going to be for the rest of the song. And it has the part here, which I think works pretty well. Tower Galactica and Pixel Gun Tower Defense instead combat this issue with having background music, just general area music. And also, in the case of both of them, in some points having the area music change, particularly when some new enemy is introduced. And it has that incident, like it doesn't start playing as soon as the wave starts. When the enemy spawns, and the enemy has a spawn sound that's like a large screech, so you know something's happening, which is cool. Pistol Gun Tower Defense does this too, but I can't think of the exact instance. I actually noticed that. It's like a subtle change, which is actually really smart, because then you don't notice that it's getting more intense, but it is. So it actually better eases you into the upcoming boss fight music. Eventual. I'm sure, should I say eventual, because some of these are in early game. And as well, the boss themes themselves have a way of easing you in. Like, for example, in Tower Galactica again. Right after having the intense few waves dealing with the ninja enemies, you get dialogue of one of them shouting in Swedish to set them all on fire. And as well, the dialogue before it has been referencing the return of their fallen chieftain. You sit still on the quiet battlefield as long as the music's built up, and suddenly you hear the HP bar sound effect as the HP bar itself appears, and the boss appears on the beat drop. As well, a frenzy of attacks gets launched at you, which really works well. And it doesn't just stop there at that beat drop. It gets even more intense afterwards, which this boss fight kind of goes crazy, so it works really well. And also take Pixel Gun Tower Defense, for example. Let's look at Cyborg Slasher's theme. A mini boss and veteran, which is a harder version of the recruit boss. If, for example, if Gravedigger appeared in Fallen mode and had a remixed version of its theme, that's what it would be like. Kind of like a look how far we've come moment of having the first boss you face in the game appear in the hardest game mode. And the theme reflects that, having this same melody and basically just being a more robotic version of the Slasher's theme. I really like this. The music is nice and the fight is brutal, so, you know, it fits the game well. So for TDX, they should try to do something similar with background themes, or just make the themes themselves actually have a build-up. And I think that they could do something cool with having the harder versions of the original game modes, like the Elite and Expert. They could have Revived Plague Doctor actually have like a remixed version of the Plague Doctor's theme, which would be cool. And then Eradicator MK2 a theme with some of the Eradicator MK1 motifs, which kinda compare to Star Galactica with it having a bunch of motifs for the areas. There's a lot more I can go into with the soundtracks of the games I mentioned here, but I am not a music major, so we'll just leave this here. I did say the visuals on TDX were good. That's only on some of the maps, because the contrast of the very realistic zombies on the retro maps is a little weird, and also with the towers as well. And the faces. I can't with these faces. I know people have complained about this before, and I know they're supposed to be zombies, but it's just, it's so unappealing, because it just kind of is weird, because you can definitely tell these are Roblox models with their blockiness and everything, but the faces are just, they don't even look creepy, they just look disgusting. As well, the zombie designs tend to lack uniqueness. Take the plus zombies, for example. All of them are orange. How are you supposed to tell these apart? The only real way to tell apart a heavy zombie plus from a zombie plus is the size and speed. Like, make them drowned out colors of the originals or something. Like, look at this entire Galactica. Even with all the chaos, you can still pick out the individual enemies. Having, maybe having a cool hat or a weapon, or, you know, trying to kill you. You're able to pick them out, unless there's poor lighting. And even in like stages like the Hovenic, you can still tell where certain enemies are even in the darkness. As well, I think that the designs of the zombies are kind of similar to TDS's enemies beta designs, which I think TDS does a lot better. The Fallen mode ones are, like I suggested the intermediate ones be, with like drowned out versions of the originals being a lot more veiny and weird, while the originals are more cartoony and colorful, which works very well, I'd say. So basically, I'd say fix the faces, or just go like TDS and Tower Battles, which this game definitely still loves to copy, and chop off the faces. As well, I'd say you could make the retro maps a bit less retro-y and make them have more of the like retro design with a bit more realistic feel. I think that'd be pretty cool. Or you could just make retro versions of the enemies to fit those maps, though that'd probably be a lot more work. For a genre, you could definitely fall under strategy. You'd assume having gameplay that encourages thinking and bouncing on your toes would be a no-brainer. However, TDX is probably the most brain-dead I feel when playing a tower defense game. I don't know if it's the unbalanced scale of total destruction or absolute death, or the fact that being able to think quick on your toes isn't something that you have to take into account. For example, let's say I'm doing a solo elite, and I forget to get extra self-detection for the mutated. Juju's just dead on the spot. There is basically nothing it can do with the limited resources it gives you. And as well, the one time the hand-holdy dialogue could be helpful, it doesn't warn you about these in advance. The heck? If you aren't prepared for an enemy beforehand, there's little you can do to prevent your death. For example, take another example. Relying entirely on Missile Trooper in intermediate mode is something that new players might do, or just might happen upon doing. You know, see a strategy video, I'll just use this loadout, I'll use Missile Trooper since this is high DPS, and then you die. Because of how, there's explosive immunity enemies, oops, I forgot to tell you that, whoop-de-doo, and now you're dead. Or, you could pay us some money and, get back to that wave, extra base HP and extra money. Doesn't that sound fun? As I said before, in TDX the enemies are introduced pretty slowly, so you get time to understand their mechanics and prepare to counter them. Or they are slow enough to where you can skip the wave and get something to counter them. Defense is definitely punishing, but when you lose you can't help but blame you or your teammates. Maybe you were too greedy and were farming too much, maybe you played too hard of a map, or you forgot to bring a vital tower. I think that TDX should lower the quantity of brutal mechanics or actually ease them in slowly. And as well, just as I said before, don't make the dialogue have to tell you that the enemies are coming, because then it makes the player feel like it's cheap. Like if they figure it out themselves that, we probably need to prepare for these, then it feels like more of an accomplishment. Another reason that TDX's gameplay kind of feels bare bones is because the towers and enemies don't feel too unique. What I mean is, we need more silly mechanics in the game, like stuff for the game to stand out. For example, take Pixel Gun Tower Defense. The whole point of that game is that weapons and towers are separate entities and take up their own slots, and you can mix and match them so that you can have, for example, have two different towers have the same weapon, but they can still serve different purposes. This makes the gameplay very interesting because of the countless tower combinations. Or you could go the cube defense route and make every single tower have its own gimmick. I'm not even kidding. How many towers don't have a gimmick? Most of them are towers you get early on. TDX has like artillery, water towers, some abilities. You can basically reuse Sniper's ability for Laser Gunner. How lame can you get? There's some towers that could have been given cool gimmicks. Like, they could have gotten the Void Rift route and given Railgunner percentage damage to make it better for single target. People may bring up the multipath stuff, but that's just like, we saw Tower Blitz do it, and even then it's kind of a boring mechanic anyways, since most of the towers just have an optimal path. It could add a layer of strategy if it's done right, but it's very hard to do right regardless. Now, that isn't all I have. We're going to have a last general section, which will basically be for things that don't exactly relate to any tower defense game in particular, or aren't big enough for their own section. Okay, so the collab skins, I think we can all agree that they completely fumbled the bag here. Like, I'm talking, if you try to defend these skins, you are out of your mind. They already had the crates, which definitely gave the incentive for people to buy coins, being that you can get all the skins, you just have to rely on RNG, and there are rarities as well. TDS has this as well, but most of they put the skins in separate crates, so the actual cool skins are either you pay Robux or they're passive, which the passive is actually pretty cool, having them from weeklies or getting them from the daily rewards. But these are only from Robux, and they're also like the only good skin. Like, yeah, you have the legendaries, but as I stated before, with how many skins there are, it's basically no chance of getting them. Like, I would have loved to have more skins than just stupid recolors, but no, they cost Robux. Even the Christmas events kind of sucked. It's the same problems as the main game has that I've complained about before. And you can definitely tell that this was just rushed out to compete with TDS's Christmas event, which did not work out for them. Well, the Nightmare mode just kind of sucks. Like, I get what they were going for, they just did not do it well. How are you gonna have a game mode that somebody who grinds out tower defense games, that is basically just talking about me, just has no motivation to complete and does, like, I did try to beat the Nightmare on Xmas, but I just couldn't, because not only was it boring as all heck, it's just so unbalanced. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Thanks for sitting through my rant, and remember, please be civil in the comments. Or don't. Give me extra algorithm boost because of the argument. I don't really care. And regardless, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah. Be good, bub!